Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. I know around the world we continue to wrestle with the challenges of the coronavirus and what's happening to the health club industry and fitness in general. A lot of clubs ordered to close around the world, and so this is a time of great challenge. Keep your spirits up. Today, we're having a couple of great people on the podcast to hopefully give you some insights and forward thinking about how to cope with what's happening now. Rick Mayo, Alloy Personal Training, both the license side of that business and the franchise. A longtime colleague who's been on the podcast before, operating his personal training studio outside of Atlanta, is going to share with you some of what's happening in his world and how he's dealing with it. I hope you find it of great interest. And then Brandi Bergeron, my colleague and partner at Moon Mission Media, which handles a lot of global brands, both on the operator and supply side, including our brand Vertimax and others. She's going to talk about communication strategies and the essence of really crisis management and communication around that at this time. So I'm hoping all of you are safe, your families are safe, your loved ones are safe and well. Please take care of yourselves. I hope this information is at least helpful and informative to you. If you would like it or you enjoy it or find it useful, please share it. I'm here at Bryan K. O'Rourke on all the channels, as well as Bryan K. O'Rourke at Gmail if you need anything. So without further ado, let's hear from our guest, Rick Mayo and Brandi Bergeron. Listeners, as I mentioned in the intro, many of you know him, Rick Mayo with Alloy, recently launched his big franchise concept, etc. And he, has a lot of people around the world that he confers with during this corona situation with his facility at the Atlanta area as well. I thought he would be a great person to hear from on this podcast. Rick, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well, all things considered. Thank you, Bryan. Thanks for having me on. And hot topic, and I'm happy that we're going to have a chance to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, and I know you're doing some other podcasts. I think another one today that will be launched and more. So people be on the lookout for that. We'll have links in the show notes. So, Rick, with your facility in the Atlanta area, tell us, how are you approaching this as a business person with your facility?
Yeah, so we're in a unique situation, Bryan. We are a personal training brand. And so, we pivoted away from sort of the large group training, or you think the word classes, a while back. And just so happens that model ended up being favorable for this situation, meaning the recommendations that started out with the CDC of, gatherings of less than 50 people. And then President Trump came out and said, hey, stay in groups of 10 people or less. And so because of that, unlike some other states, we've actually been able to stay open the entire time. In Georgia, it started with cities, setting restrictions. So we have a couple of brick and mortars. And in one of the cities last week, they shut down bars, restaurants, and health facilities. We were able to petition the city based on the model that we were running to allow us to stay open as long as we practiced good social distancing. We had committed to keep the programming such that there was no shared equipment, so we tweaked the programming a little bit, keep people away from each other, and then just follow any and all of the best, hygienic practices that we could to keep the spread of the virus. And they okayed that. And so then the city that our mothership facility's in, same thing a couple of days ago. And we petitioned the city as well. Now, before we heard back from the city where the mothership facility is, the governor of Georgia came out and said, hey, no social gatherings of over 10. And if you have a business that stays within those guidelines, you're good to go. And so we are very fortunate that in our state, we're not being forced to shut down as of yet. And so, we fought for it a little bit, and now we don't have to right now. And so we are open for business.
Well, that's good. I'm glad for you. But that's not the only thing you're doing in your model. You were telling me earlier today, which I've known, you also provide digital training without people coming in the facility, right?
Yeah, because listen, just because we're open, it's a very polarizing topic, obviously, and everyone has an opinion, and everyone is constantly updated with new information and inside information, if you will. And so about half of our clientele is not showing up to the gym at all. And so thankfully, we have a digital solution. So we have an app partner. We have an Alloy branded version of an app, and we already had that in place. So thankfully, we had a digital solution in place. And the clients that were choosing to not come to the gym, we were simply able to easily shift gears. And they actually already had the app for things like vacation workouts and whatnot if they weren't coming to the gym. But we were able to pivot immediately and say, when someone said, hey, I want to freeze my membership, we were able to say, well, we're not doing that. Actually, we're coaching everyone virtually using the app. And if they were someone that was coming to the gym 3 days a week, they might say, well, what's the app? Maybe they'd never had a chance to use it. And so we would handhold them, walk them through how to download it, populate it with workouts. And it does all kinds of great stuff, Bryan. It tracks sleep. You can rate stress levels, all of these things that are certainly pertinent to being healthy. And certainly at a time like this, as stressful as it is with people being quarantined, we could look at those other factors and then really coach them more than just exercise. We can coach nutrition, lifestyle, stress, kind of just be a nice, an ear if someone needs it, right? And so the app was really a lifesaver, and it allowed us to do what a lot of other companies are not doing right now, which is we kept our marketing spend at the same spend that we had before, which means that and it's less noisy, right? As you certainly know a lot more about digital marketing than I do, but there's a lot of noise chasing the same customers around, and it's not even in the same business necessarily. I mean, if you have a 45-year-old golfer that you're chasing as an example with an ad, there's a lot of other people that want that business, not just in fitness, so not even direct competitors. It's just noise. Right now, that noise is much quieter. So we're actually getting leads. Our cost per lead is much less expensive, and we're able to take to market a virtual training product and market that, which is really, really great. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to do that. So we actually kept our marketing spend right where it was, even turned it up a little bit, because we were seeing some good traction with some of the ads and getting a low cost per lead and pretty good engagement. So having just that digital solution, that app, allowed us to retain the current revenue that we have by continuing to engage with our clients that chose not to come to the gym, even though we can be open. And additionally, it allows us to keep marketing to new clients with a virtual solution. So it's been great.
That's great. It's so great that you set yourself up in that way, which is really, that whole omni-channel approach is really one of the key pillars of success, I think, going forward, whether you had this crisis or not, right? Because in the end, yes, it's about convenience for the client, right?
It is. And I'll tell you, Ryan, and you'll get this, we never took to market virtual training, but because of this situation, it gave us the opportunity, and again, in every challenge, there lies an opportunity to build a better, solid playbook around this virtual play. So we'll more than likely keep that on the menu moving forward so that we can take our brand even further outside of our four walls. And if someone doesn't want to come to the facility, we have a really robust now playbook and price point and whatnot for virtual training. And so it's something that we'll be able to run, and then we'll be able to pass that playbook along to franchisees in the future as well.
That's brilliant. The other thing I noticed that you all are doing is you're doing freemium content. You're doing the workouts and stuff on social platforms, providing your community support, whether they are a member or not, as well.
We are. So we started, we have a private Facebook page, and we have really good engagement with our current members. And when this first kicked off, we moved most of the content to our public page. So at our Alloy Personal Training Roswell, which is, again, is our mothership location, we're running live workouts there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 o'clock. And we advertise on our private page so we can get our members over there. And then the reason we're doing it on our public page is, yes, it's a great service to the community. This way, because it's not private, our clients can, invite friends and family or tag people in the post, and they can also participate in these live workouts. And as you know, those stay pinned on the page. And so there's going to be a lot more content as this event carries on, as we build more and more of these workouts. Plus, if you get your private Facebook members over to your public page, the engagement then on that page is much higher, right? So you have a lot more people commenting. As you know, it's hard to get, even your own fans to see your post these days. Facebook wants you to pay for that, right? And so this is a great way to get organic engagement. Plus, most importantly, you're seen in the community as a brand that's helping people at no cost. You realize that people are stuck at home, and we are doing workouts that revolve. The last one we did was around a book bag, a heavy book bag. So imagine everyone has a backpack somewhere in their home. Throw some of your kids' books in there, throw some sand in there, throw some kitty litter, whatever you want, right? Throw some food in there, it doesn't matter, and do a workout with a backpack. So those are the types of content that we're putting out that are really relevant to someone who's stuck in the home, and it's good. It's good for the whole community. I mean, it gives back, it gets our brand out there. I mean, I love a win-win where we're helping the community and also we're helping our business at the same time.
Yeah, that's very smart. Rick, when you're talking to operators and owners around the world about this, without giving up details, or specifics, what are you hearing the biggest concerns when people are chatting with you? What do you hear from others when it comes to their worries about the situation at present?
I think the length of it, right? And really most people are worried about their people, right? About their teams. Like, how am I going to pay my people? And as you know, there are government programs that are being proposed now that are, they're talking about loans that might become grants if you can prove that you spent, your loan money on payroll and things of that nature, which would certainly be great for a lot of businesses. But when I'm talking to other owners, it's, the pain points are, what do we do with our teams? Can we afford to maintain these guys? Who do I need to furlough or lay off? What's the right way to do that? Is it better if they collect unemployment? There's those type of questions that we're getting, which are really hard, as you know. I mean, that's the hardest thing, is the people, because you love your people, you have a business because of them, and when you have no business, it's not a lot of fun to have to make these considerations. But we go there, and then I think we talked a little bit about public perception with some people. I think some people were, they were maybe in our situation where they're allowed to be open, but should they be open? And that's the $1 million question. So I don't know if that's something you plan to talk about, later in the podcast, Bryan, but that's certainly where a lot of our conversations went. We're like, hey, should we stay open or not? What are the optics of this, right? And should I be worried about that?
Yeah. Well, in your business model is very, particular compared to maybe a, 7,000 member club where you have, bunches of people coming to the door with government regs on you can't do this, you can't do that, and it becomes impossible to probably manage that in the confines of the rules, wherein you have that flexibility. But you're right. I mean, even in your case, when you're doing what you're doing, following the rules, putting in practices that protect the people that want to come, because those people want to come, while at the same time offering digital solutions, that's probably the best anyone could do right now, given the circumstances.
I agree, and that's sort of how every owner felt, was like, I don't want to be seen as part of the problem. And even some of the bigger clubs, Bryan, that are the ones that you mentioned with 7,000 members, they may have coaches or trainers that want to take people to the park and keep them away from each other and do some, well-spaced boot camps. And they're really, just thinking out loud, like, is that a good idea? Are we going to be seen as part of the problem or part of the solution? And I don't know that there's a right answer. This thing ranges from, the world is on fire to it's nothing more than a common cold. And I think we all would agree, if you're somewhat sane, it probably falls somewhere in between those two. And you just kind of have to make your own decisions based on your business, how you feel, maybe the feeling overall of your membership, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough question. I don't know that there's a great answer. Certainly for us, based on what our governor has said and how we feel like we're doing it, we decided to stay open. And the clients that are coming in are really happy that we are. But I'm sure there's an equal number that think that we shouldn't be open, and that's just kind of the way it's going to be. There's not a lot of way around that, I don't think.
No, I agree. Any final thoughts or insights, Rick? I know that you have a lot that you're dealing with right now with operating the expansion of your franchise operations as well as your existing licensee customers and more. So I appreciate you making time for everyone. I know this will be well listened to. But outside of that, what are your final thoughts, if any, that you could share with the audience?
I think to stay focused on the things that you can do. There's so many things right now that are outside of our control, whether it be decisions from the government or where this virus is going to go, or there's just a lot of things that we can't control. But there's a lot of things that we can control. And it's sort of like, just focus on what's right in front of you right now. And what a lot of gym owners weren't doing in our conversations that they should be is just engaging in any way possible with their membership. We mentioned a few ways already. So we have an app and we're doing Facebook Live workouts, but doing Zoom conversations or sending out emails. There were some owners that I spoke to that literally just closed the doors when the government told them to and have had no communication with any members.
Yeah.
And so I would say, and they're just in shock, honestly, and just don't know what to do. And it's like, well, there's some things you can do. Technology is easy to acquire these days, sometimes even free. You have 1,000,001 ways to engage with your membership. Just try to stay out in front of it, at least with some messaging, right? Send some relevant articles or have some trainers get on and film some workout videos. Don't just put your head in the sand and hope this is going to go away. There are some things that you can do, and that would be my advice, is to do everything that you can do and then let the chips fall where they may, because the things we can't control anyway. Yeah,
that's great insight. And in one of our next podcasts or the interview after this, we're going to talk about communication strategies and that kind of thing, because it's really relevant. Rick, I hope you guys stay safe in the Atlanta area. I know that a lot of people follow you, so I know that your words will be well received, and continue good luck to your team and all the locations around the world that you support and work with. We're here for you if you need anything. Again, we appreciate your time.
Brian, I appreciate it, man. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, friend. Bye. Listeners, as I mentioned in the intro, Brandi Bergeron, who works with the group and is my partner in Moon Mission Media, we did a podcast months ago over a glass of wine on marketing. And this is a call not just about marketing, it's about communication. Brandi and the team handles a bunch of different fitness brands around the world. And so, right now having some actionable things to think about hopefully will be helpful. Brandi, thank you so much for making time for everyone that's listening in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And are you doing all right? I know you are, but I know there's a lot going on in the world right now. I hope you're feeling well.
Yes, as well as can be expected with all the crazy that's going on, but we are just keeping our heads down. We're supporting our clients, supporting our team, and just figuring out how to navigate through some murky waters at the moment.
Yes, that's the truth. And so when you recall kind of our conversations before about marketing, we talked about a philosophy, things like short-term, long-term, being, empathetic. In this world, when you're thinking about marketing, how do you discuss that right now? How do you think about that?
Well, right now is the perfect opportunity to really think about playing long term. We have to consider everything that we're going through, everything that people are going through, what our business is, what's happening to our businesses. And we need to understand that, this too is going to end. We're all going to get through it. Inevitably thereafter, things may look a little different. But, business will go on. And it's really about having a long-term plan that aligns with the goals, very clear goals that we set out, and doing the things now that are necessary to really set us up for future success.
And doing the things now are things like we talked about before, things like how you communicate, for example, right? Like as a component of marketing, especially in a situation like this, like the cadence, the quality, communication is so key right now with your membership base and communities, right?
Yes. Yes. And, and many times, especially in times of crisis, like we're experiencing now, or, you and I are more familiar with some crisis as being like some storms that we deal with on a yearly basis. It's important with so much coming all at us all at once that it can be really difficult to find and set those priorities and take the time and the energy that's better to execute for the long term. And so sometimes we can get caught up in a more short game. But if we play the long game, as we set out to do, all of the efforts and tasks that we choose to work on that will connect us to the long-term goal puts us more in touch in the overall big picture. We can reframe our potential past mistakes or business omissions as opportunities for deeper learning and growth.
And when you say deeper learning, for example, understanding how others feel in your community or what it works or whatever, correct?
Yes, exactly. The people that really need you, we're seeing the whole fitness industry. They've adapted very quickly, and you're seeing people come out and supporting their members and their clients and their colleagues in a way that, of course, service is interrupted, but the ultimate goal of the business is still being executed to keep the businesses going and, and our clients and members going as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier crisis management, communication and crisis management being a big component of communication. This is a crisis. I hate to use the term, but it is. What are some principles that you would recommend to listeners, business owners, operators when it comes to thinking about their communication strategies from the position of crisis?
Well, now is the time to think about all the people that we help and all of the opportunities that are available to us. We oftentimes tend to consider the things that are not available at the moment and the restraints that we have, but to look at all the opportunities that are available and how we can best help with our tools. What are our solutions? How can we help? How can we expand our offerings to help those and support them and continue to support our community? And both in this crisis and in any to come, whether that be on a really large global scale like we're seeing now, or even when something hits closer to the community as we've seen in the past months.
What are some tips that you would have for folks out there and what they need to be considering when you think about communication crisis management?
Well, right now we're thinking a lot about that because we're moving quickly. A lot of the companies that we work on, as much as we did have crisis plans in order, this is something on a scale that we really hadn't seen. So there's 5 tips that I've been working on with our clients. And, the first one, and I'll review the 5 tips and then I'll explain a little bit about them. But 5 tips are: 1 is to have a plan. Number 2 is to design a communication protocol. Number 3 is to be honest and face the truth. Number 4 is to keep moving. And number 5 is to evolve.
And so let's get specific. So obviously a plan, you have to know who's on first and second. That's clear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to deeply understand your mission and your values. Many times, especially in times of crisis, with so many uncertain and emotional variables at play, it can be easy to be blown off course. So the plan should take into account the profound and unique understanding that we have of our businesses and acting in the greatest and highest good for all of those involved. That speaks directly to the nuances of your business, the needs of your community, the needs of your employees, your colleagues, and your clients.
Yeah. And a great example, too, on the plan was, for example, how Garrett Marshall in the podcast last week talked about their cadence every 48 hours. So, the cadence of the communication as well as the quality of the community, having a plan around that as well.
Right. It's important. And it also offers a bit of comfort that you can offer as a business so people can understand what's going on with you, that you are there for them. You are offering what it is you can, hopefully it's exactly what they need. And then they can come to some level of expectation to really trust you. That's something that is a big focus for us in business, with our businesses, and then with our clients that we work with, is really developing that trust and that where you can count on the businesses and you can know what exactly is happening and everything is clear.
Yeah. And then you mentioned protocol, consistency, and who gets what when, right?
Yes. And designing and executing a communication protocol is key. It should be something that's a part of everyone's strategy And nowhere do we see it more important than in times of crisis like we are in now. To design a communication protocol, this should include both positive feedback, negative feedback, any sort of reviews, and especially any potential backlash from either a real or a perceived misdoing. This is where we really can craft our position. You have your talking points ahead of time when possible. You evolve and you grow as the situation unfolds. This is time where you can use some tools, automate what you can, display your messaging clearly on your website and your social profiles where issues arise, especially where tensions are running high. Offer a kind word and a solution to escalate communication. We're seeing right now customer service, social media is becoming a bit of a customer service platform, which I believe you and I actually discussed in our last podcast about
Right.
That was coming.
Right.
And so it's important that we really hear what people are saying. We need to acknowledge that we hear them publicly and then try to take whatever issue is offline to resolve it. People, sometimes they just really want to be listened to. And I think that's especially the case now, so they can understand what's happening and they can know what to expect.
Yeah, and with protocols, there's SEO implications. There are all kind of technical implications to it, but I won't take you down that rabbit hole. The next point you've made out of your 5 is honesty, like really transparency, really honesty, but both for the good and the bad, I assume, right?
Yeah, you have to celebrate both your wins and your losses. Social media is widely available. It's instant. And as we can see now, it's where people are turning to. Social distancing has turned us all to social media in a way that's unprecedented almost. We need to, now is the time to stand by your business practices and your business decisions. You need to acknowledge whether this is a real or, like I said, a perceived wrongdoing. And most of all, just be nice and understanding and honest about what's really happening. Don't be robotic, don't be rude, don't be impatient, and don't stand behind
BS.
Yes.
Yeah, if something
Yes.
went wrong, just move on and just acknowledge it and say you're sorry, or don't be fearful, right?
Exactly. People can smell it from a mile away. And they know right now that they have the power. Often when you see somebody going off, they're not just going to make one comment.
No.
They're going to make many comments so that they can be seen and heard.
Yep.
Well, if you can be the one seeing and hearing them, that sort of tantrum is just not necessary.
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about this before because they'll not just come back on that existing platform. They'll go on 4 other platforms. Make a point. And they want to be heard. Yeah. They want to be You want to take that offline, as you mentioned. But also, with respect to that is just, don't be mad about it. It's frustrating, but they're your customer. They're your community. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to be a little outlandish, maybe. They're going to be, but don't get caught up with the stupid customer attitude because it's not going to serve you. I mean,
right.
Deal with it in a positive way. Take it offline. And then you mentioned keep moving, like keep doing. What does that mean in your world when it comes to crisis communication?
It's easy to get just derailed. It's easy to get derailed and think, oh my gosh, what matters? Questioning what should I be doing? What matters? And you have to keep moving. Like I said, in the beginning, we are going to get through this. So in the meantime, put out beautiful work, help others. Now especially is the time to add value for a couple of reasons. One is to serve your community in their time of need. But another is also to keep your business going so that after the crisis and after the so-called new normal sets in, you and your employees can get back to work in serving your community. Now's the time to consider everything you're doing, all that's going out, and ask yourself a couple of questions. Is it appropriate? Is it sensitive? And does it help? But whatever we do, now's not the time to stop creating. We have to keep going and tastefully promote our brands to address the actual world we live in. However topsy-turvy things are right now, people need to live and they will survive. And they may need your offering to make their lives better.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and it's hard because you can get really stuck. It's for a lot of people, they're just overwhelmed right now, which is why the 5th point that you mentioned, evolving, continue to learn, not just sticking with a plan, but watching what's going on and adjusting, I assume.
Mm-hmm. this is where that long ball really comes in, making those decisions today that are going to set us up for tomorrow. Things are different right now, and quite frankly, they're going to be for this foreseeable future. So it's important that we understand what people are going through, and it's also important to evaluate the way we do business. We need to think about the way we interact with people, the way we handle situations, and quite frankly, the way we show love to one another.
I love that. You're like that. I love the show love to one another. And Brandi, so thanks for those points. I know the listeners hopefully will find them valuable. Any final words or thoughts from you at this time?
I would just like to encourage everyone to keep calm and not be attached to the news too much. Get outside, look at what's going on around you. Of course, keep your safe distance. But, this too, like you've been saying, this too shall pass. So now's a really great time to reevaluate what we can take from this situation that everyone would prefer not to be in, and how we can make it for, a better tomorrow for our businesses and our industry as a whole.
I agree with that. And I'm so grateful for you to be able to spend time in the middle of everything I know that you and our teams are going through right now, helping clients and customers through this unprecedented time. Brandi, thank you so much for making time for everyone on this podcast.
Thank you, Bryan. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed both Brandi Bergeron and Rick Mayo's interviews, and I hope that you got some useful information from this podcast. We'll continue to produce more of these in the coming weeks. If you have any suggestions for subjects or people you would like to have on, please let me know. BryanKO'Rourke@gmail.com or @BryanKO'Rourke or any of the social channels. Look, I'm wishing you all the very, very best. Please take care of yourselves. Prayers go out to you and your families and your employees, members. This will pass. So hang in there. Take care of yourself, and until we meet again, all the best. Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, BryanKO'Rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.